Hello everyone, I'm Arunlal. I'm an assistant professor teaching in Government College Mokeri, which happens to be in Calicut. We are here to explore the newest developments in literary theory. To be precise, we are going to look at a few ideas that came up in late 20th century, early 21st century, and of course, the contemporary times, theories that are only a few decades old, theories that have not still stabilized themselves as theories. We're going to look at a few ideas that are floated in the post structural world. Hello and welcome to this new series of lectures on new branches of literary theory, especially those branches, those subdivisions, those reclassifications that happened in the field of literary theory after the advent of post structuralism. If you look into most syllabi available in most universities in India, you will find that literary theory and its study kind of comes to a halt with post structuralism. It happens because post-structuralism happened to question the very ontology of literary theory itself. They started talking about post-theory, an environment of post-theory where theory itself was called into question. The very idea of literary theory was called into question by post-structuralism. But despite this, there was a major reshuffling. There was an influx of knowledges from other disciplines and a creation of a range of a spectrum of theories which are evidently interdisciplinary and in their practice became a very popular, a very favored kind of approach towards literary analysis. So we're going to list out a few of these areas, a few of these ideas in fact. It is important that we have to know the context. It's a post-structural idea. Nothing comes to you as pure knowledge. Nothing comes to the table as knowledge proper. There is a history of that idea. When you get an idea, you need to ask that idea, like, where do you come from? How were you crafted? What is the evolution that happened? Understanding the history of knowledge itself becomes a practice, a methodology, a guiding principle in the post structural world. Because we are past post structuralism. As I have told you already, post theory has itself become a passe, and we have moved on to other theoretical practices, other interdisciplinary frameworks which will help us to read. And when we say read now, we are not talking about literature per se. We're talking about reading films, reading culture, reading politics, reading governmentality, reading space, reading animal culture, reading animal ethics, reading robotics. So you see, humanities itself has come to this crossroads, and it has started branching out into unprecedented interdisciplinarity. So probably the first idea that we should discuss in connection with this new branching out is something called posthumanism. There are two, three different ways in which you can crack that key term, posthumanism. You could understand that posthumanism is any philosophy that makes its appearance after the peaking of humanism. In that sense, the entire gamut of literary theory is a post-humanist approach, because literary theory calls into question the basic contours of, the basic context of, the basic ideas that constitute humanism. Literary theory the modern literary theory, the structuralist or post-structuralist literary theories, all of them work on this premise that language constructs reality. Language is a major component in constructing reality. Truth is a function of language. And when you agree with that statement, you're basically throwing humanism out of your window. So, in that sense, the entire project of literary theory can be understood as post-humanist. But then this is not the approach that we are going to focus on in today's lecture. We would rather look at post-humanism as an idea, as a field, as an interdisciplinary exploration that calls into question the idea of human, the concept of human, the moral circles, the ethical fulcrum, the ideas and ideological frameworks that were constructed with human as the focus. So, when you move away from that focus, when you move away from human as a focus, as a focal point, as a focus, then you make your entry into something called post-humanism. You start thinking about non-human entities. We are not referring exclusively to animals, birds or insects. We are also referring to robotics. We are referring to AI. We are referring to the digital intervention in culture. These are all non-human entities. And somehow, academia, the study of culture, the study of literature, in all these areas, it has become imperative to think about how non-human entities make an intervention, make an appearance. And when you look at post-humanism in that angle, when you look at post-humanism as a field where non-human entities make an intervention, when you do that, you will need to reconfigure a lot of things. You will need to redraw a lot of boundaries. You will need to reimagine the very idea of human, where human ends and mission starts. If you remember the classic categorization, the classic duality between man and mission, human versus mission, human as creative, mission as derivative. When you subscribe to that idea, when you subscribe to that kind of a dichotomy, probably you are thinking against the drift of post-humanism. Post-humanism blurs this boundary. Post-humanism asks us to identify human as a condition that was constructed by a long history of discourses. And it is asking us to break away from those discourses. It is asking us to think of human as a possibility extended through missions. Posthumanism is not skeptical of missions and messianic interventions in human life. In fact, it does not dub the intervention of mission as external, derivative, supplementary. It's like looking at a human being with a hearing aid or a pacemaker or an artificial limb. It is difficult to identify the biological, the organic body of that person as different from whatever goes into helping his sensory mechanism, his or her sensory mechanisms, his or her, metabolic mechanisms. We have machines installed inside human bodies. Posthumanism would ask us to look at that possibility as a cyborg possibility. One of the earliest writings to have come up in this field is Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto, where Haraway tries to look at cyborg as the new possibility. And the cyborg in that document is identified as an organism that is a blend of, a perfect, seamless blend of technology and biology. organic human being and machine possibilities. Art dubs itself in the digital era. When you look into the way in which art is fast evolving as an arm of digital possibilities, when you look at that, when you look at artists like Stellark or Orlan. Now, Stellark famously fixed a robotic arm to his body, and then he plugged that arm into the internet, so that anybody who logged into the site to which he gave links could see whatever was happening inside his body by accessing the robotic arm. That is a performance art, but that is also a redefinition of what would be classically identified as art. If this is performance art, you could also think of say literary art, for that matter. You can think of how literature can be dealt with using hypertext, for instance. If you can think of a novel that is coded into one sentence that can be clicked infinitely. From one sentence you make a click and you visit another page, and from that page you click and you go to another page. What you do is, the entire novel can be thought of as a function of one limited finite hypertext. And these are possibilities. These are possibilities that people like John Barth have. John Barth, Leslie Fiedler. Leslie Fiedler famously declared that literature is dead. Novel is dead. Literature of exhaustion, if you want to use that technical term that John Barth was trying to put up. John Barth said there is literature of exhaustion. Like, print modernity has come to its fag end, and what we are moving into is like digital modernity, digital literature. We are moving into literature that is constantly interacting with the digital platforms. Like, you can make a text, you can convert a text into PDF, you can convert a text into a digital format, and then you can read it on an e-book reader. You don't even have to have an e-book reader. E-book reader is basically a bridge between print modernity and digital modernity, because it converts whatever has been written, archived in actual libraries, in like analog libraries. It converts that into a digital library. As you would agree, a PDF document is more comfortable to search and locate than an actual book. Now, this is a difference, like searching for information, finding it. I mean, this is a basic scholarly activity. This is a basic research activity in literature. Like, you need to, if you need to find out how many times a certain word was used in a book, how many syntax variations, what exactly is the style of an author, how do you arrive at a consensus on the style of an author? You can have softwares which tells you how a certain style is produced by using language in a certain way. So if you give, like, Anthony Burgess is a Clockwork Orange for this software, the software would say how neologisms are basically key to the style of writing of that book. And see, this machine is not led by prejudices. This machine basically is programmed to this artificially intelligent platform through which a work of literature is passed. It is not biased or prejudiced or predicated towards giving you a certain output. It is programmed to see how syntax is used in that book, how vocabulary is used in that book, how many times a certain word gets repeated, how many times a certain sentence construction gets repeated. Now, these are like hard data. You see, the output of a creative mind can be dubbed into data formats, and when something is dubbed into data formats, it becomes susceptible to, it becomes subject to, it becomes ready to be analyzed by a software or a computer program or a computer language. So, you see, the human language and the computer language these two ideas which were supposed to be non-compatible, they are fast becoming compatible. They are fast becoming complementary. And this is how literature would be in post-human environment. So post-humanism would lead us towards a world of art and literature in which extreme intervention of machines, and when I say machines, we are not referring to machines in the 19th century sense of the term. We are not referring to those noisy, smoke emitting, shivering, vibrating kind of machines made of steel, aluminum, or iron. No. We are referring to algorithms. Algorithms are the new machines. You don't see them, there is no smoke emitted, there is no noise. An algorithm is an invisible machine, it is an immersive machine. Like we lose ourselves in this machine. We work inside this machine. It's not like we are working this machine. We feel like we are working on Google, we are working on ChatGPT, we are working on Facebook, we are working on Meta, Alphabet. No. In fact, these things are able to collect your consciousnesses. Our consciousnesses as data gets transferred to these algorithms. They process your likings, they process your loves, they process your shares, they process your comments, they process your attitudes, they process your ideologies. So as a human being, you existed in a pre-digital environment. You existed as a human being whose ideology did not move outside, which is ideology, prejudices, whatever you call it. I mean, these things did not move out of your body. As a human being, there was a limit. There is a limit, and this limit was considered sacred. But now there is no limit. There is a digital footprint, and it's not a footprint. It's actually a human print. An image of you, a copy of you, is created via the profiles that you make to interact with the online world, and the online world is meticulously archiving it, and they are using it. So when you use, say, a software that helps you identify your location, say a map software, this software works exclusively on your devices using your preferences, the search data that you feed into your devices. All this determine your map. You will have to distinguish the previous idea of offline analog maps with this new digital idea of maps. The offline map is like, it is universally the same. Like the map that I am referring and the map that you are referring are the same in the analog world. But a map software which can understand the kind of food I like, the kind of clothes I like. So when I search for nearby restaurants, it shows me restaurants which are personalized to my taste. So when you are searching, your results will be different from mine. When you are searching for a textile shop, when you are searching for a restaurant, when you are searching for a picnic spot, the search results, the order in which these search results appear in the map, they're going to be different. To understand an offline map, you needed a certain set of skills. Map reading was taught as a specialized skill in most educational institutions before digital revolution happened. But now the map doesn't require you to have a skill, because the directions in the map are coordinated with your location. You are the center of the map. You are the center of the world. The rest of the world is configured with reference to your location. See, this is a different kind of map. We are moving through a different kind of space. We are moving through a different kind of time. So when our sense of space, when our sense of time gets evolved as revolutionarily as this, then of course literature changes, humanities changes, and this is how post-humanism is going to make an indelible mark in the way research is conducted, in the way readings are done, in the way education is done in classrooms, in the way classroom transactions happen. Post-humanism is that environment where human limits human boundaries, human contours, or the very concept of human as it existed in the pre-digital world is called into question. And then we move into subsections. So you can talk about transhumanism, which is a concept that is kind of compatible with posthumanism. Transhumanism is when you think of human consciousness or human entities which is extended, enhanced by digital interventions or machinic interventions. So you have transhumanism as one subsection, a major subsection of posthumanism. You can think of animal studies as a subsection of humanism. Animal studies is again, it kind of exists as a separate discipline. It exists as a separate theory, but it makes sense to include animal studies as a subsection of posthumanism. Like, see, it deals with animal ethics. It deals with the conduct of human in the larger animal world. If you displace human from the center, if you move human from the focal point, if you look at the world as an interconnected chain of beings, animals, birds, insects, human, all in the same platform, then your idea regarding animals are going to change. It has to change, and it definitely changes the way an animal perceives a human being. For instance, like your dog can sense your arrival way before it actually sees your physical form. Your smell, the way your body smells, is recognized and is used by a pet dog or any pet animal for that matter. For the animal, you begin not where your skin begins, you begin where your smell begins. So basically, the idea of human is different for an animal, and in a post-humanist world, we need to take consideration of that idea. We need to take consideration of the idea that the skin is not our boundary. And probably, this idea can be flipped. You can have an inverse of this idea. Like, for instance, our body is host to a lot of microbial organisms. So these organisms that live in our intestine, these organisms that live on our skin, we become a site for these organisms. So you see, posthumanism is a revolutionary way in which our understanding of ourselves as humans will be called into question. Posthumanism is also about the development of technology, like nanotechnology, for instance, neural networks, for instance. So these studies also come under the consideration of posthumanism. Like how AI develops, for instance. AI uses complex neural networks to understand linguistic communication, language-based communication. For a very long time in history, we thought language is a very special faculty that human world has, and this faculty distinguishes humans from animals. Now, when we develop technology, when digital technology booms, it makes us look at this scenario of language as a construct. It is possible for AI to respond to questions as if it is human being, as if we are talking to another human being. Like I can ask a sensible question to an AI chat machine, and it would give me back a sensible answer. It's not a simple thing. It's a revolutionary change in the very idea of digitality. We have looked at computers as, we have looked at robots as, we have looked at artificial intelligence as a plaything. We have looked at these things, we have looked at these ideas as entertainment. We have looked at these ideas as subhuman, but they are not subhuman anymore. They're almost human, if not superhuman. When you use AI for understanding your health data, the AI can predict the kind of diseases, the kind of infections, the kind of aberrations that can happen to the kind of genetic setup that you have. It is impossible for a human doctor to predict that as accurately as that. So you have instances where people whose health data was fed into the AI, if the AI happens to tell them that they are going to have like breast cancer by the time they are 56, you have cases, actual cases in human history, in recent history, where people removed their breasts because the threat of the breast cancer could be avoided even before they had cancer, even before they contracted cancer, even before they contracted a disease. It was stalled. The possibility of the disease was stalled. And these kinds of machinic interventions, we can't call them subhuman. They are human. They are so human. They are so intermingled with the human world that we are inhabiting. It is so part of the common sense that we spread around in contemporary world. So posthumanism is that environment where we look at non-human entities, where we look at non-human agencies, where we look at cybernetics, where we look at neural networks, where we look at nanotechnology, where we look at robotics as not alien anymore. They are part of the complex that we identify as present human, the contemporary human. In a very special way, we have all become post-human. And the society that we are moving into, the society that we are evolving into globally, it is a post-humanist society. And the philosophy that we are going to develop and the ideology that we are developing, the ideology, structure of ideology, the framework of philosophies, the fulcrum of ethics that we will soon, consolidate, all those things will be post-humanist. So this is a general introduction of the post-human scenario. This is a bird's eye view into this field. I have not gone into details of each of these branches. All those stops that we have made in the discussion, they could be expanded. You can make a thorough search. We can make a thorough, elaborate. We can have elaborate lectures, elaborate discussions on each of these fields. How nanotechnology revolutionizes, human world, or how AI intervenes in art. We can have elaborate lectures on all these dimensions. But the purpose of the current lecture is to introduce post-humanism to you, and this is where it stands. Thank you for being a patient audience.